You climb into bed at night, pull the blanket up, and your feet are already cold. Cold in a way that a pair of socks never quite fixes. Maybe your legs feel heavy and tired after nothing more than a short walk out to the mailbox. Maybe your toes tingle, or one foot goes numb and prickly when you have been sitting too long. And most people just shrug and say, well, that is simply getting older. But here is what almost no one ever tells you. Those cold, heavy, tingling legs are very often a message from your circulation, the enormous network of blood vessels that has to push warm, oxygen-rich blood all the way down to your toes and all the way back up again. And that network does not struggle simply because of the calendar on the wall. It struggles because nobody ever told you what to feed it. Before we go one step further, a promise I make on every single video, I want to be honest with you from the start. I am not your doctor, and this channel is no substitute for one. Everything I share comes from the mainstream research on how food shapes healthy aging, offered as general information, never as a personal diagnosis. And circulation is one place where I truly need you to hear a warning. If you get a cramping pain in your calf or thigh when you walk that eases the moment you stop and rest, or if a foot suddenly turns cold, pale, or bluish, or you notice brand new numbness, or if one calf becomes painful, swollen, and warm to the touch, please do not wait and please do not reach for a food. Those can be signs of a blocked artery or a blood clot, and they need a doctor now, today. So let me give you the picture that started my fascination with all of this. If you took every artery, vein, and tiny capillary in your body and laid them end to end, they would stretch for something on the order of 60,000 miles. That whole vast system runs on a single, quiet trick. The delicate inner lining of your blood vessels, a layer called the endothelium, releases a tiny signaling molecule called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is the whisper that tells the muscle in your vessel walls to relax and open wider so that blood flows more freely to your legs, your feet, your hands, your brain. The discovery of how it works earned a Nobel Prize, and researchers at institutions like the National Institutes of Health and the American Heart Association keep returning to the same theme. As we age, we make less of that signal, and the lining that produces it grows stiffer and more inflamed. That is a very large part of why legs get cold and heavy and slow to heal. Now here is the hopeful part, and the reason we are here today. A great deal of mainstream research, including the nutrition science popularized by Dr. William Li, points to something ordinary people can actually do about it because certain everyday foods hand your body the raw materials to make more of that nitric oxide signal and to protect that fragile lining. Today, I am going to walk you through 6 of those foods, counted down from number 6 all the way to number 1. Every single one is backed not by folklore, but by mainstream science from bodies like the NIH, the American Heart Association, the National Institute on Aging, and the Cleveland Clinic. And here is my one request. Stay with me all the way to number 1, because the food at the top of this list is the humblest of them all. It costs almost nothing. It sits in the produce aisle of every grocery store you have ever walked into, and it may be the single most powerful everyday food for the blood flow in your legs. You have walked right past it 1,000 times. Quick question before we begin, and I do read the replies, so tell me, how old are you today, and which quiet signs have you noticed in your own legs and feet? The cold, the tingling, the heaviness. Drop it in the comments below. Now, before we get into the first food, I want to give you something, no charge and no catch. I have taken everything I know about eating for strong circulation and a long, capable life and put it into a small guide called the 90-Year Blueprint. In just a moment, a code will appear on your screen. Scan it with your phone camera, and this guide is my gift to you. Free. That is my thank you. From me to you for spending this time with me today. There is nothing to buy. Ever. The only thing I ask is that you actually put it to use. All right, let us get into it. But before I name the first food, I want to hand you a simple lens to look through, because it will make everything that follows click into place. Nearly all of the healthy blood flow in your legs comes down to just two things happening inside those vessels. The first is the signal, the nitric oxide I just described, the little whisper that tells your vessels to relax and open so blood can pour through. The second is the lining, that delicate endothelium that makes the signal, which you have to protect from the slow damage of inflammation, oxidation, and stiffening. The signal and the lining open the pipe and protect the pipe. Nearly every food on this list works by doing one of those two things, giving your body the raw material to make more of that opening signal or shielding the fragile lining that produces it. So as I count down all 6, I want you to listen for those two ideas again and again. You will hear them in the citrus, in the fish, in the humble green leaf waiting at number 1. Same plumbing, 6 different keys. Let us start the countdown. Number 6 is probably sitting in your fruit bowl right now. Citrus fruit. Oranges, grapefruit, lemons, and their cousins. Mechanism first, because that is what matters. Citrus is loaded with 2 things your blood vessels love. The first is vitamin C, one of the everyday diet's most important antioxidants. Remember that delicate vessel lining we have to protect? Vitamin C helps shield it from the constant low-grade oxidative wear that stiffens vessels over the years. The second, and this is the part most people have never heard, is a family of plant compounds called flavonoids. In oranges, the star is one named hesperidin. These flavonoids have been studied for their ability to support the healthy function of that inner lining, the very layer that makes your nitric oxide. Why does that matter so much for aging legs? Because the smallest, most fragile vessels, the tiny capillaries out in your feet and toes, are the first to suffer when the lining is inflamed and the signal runs low. Support that system, and you are supporting blood flow at the very end of the line, where cold feet and slow healing actually live. Large reviews gathered by the National Institutes of Health tie diets rich in flavonoids to healthier blood pressure and better vessel function. So how do you put this on your table? Eat the whole fruit rather than drinking the juice. The whole orange gives you the fiber and the flavonoids from the pith, that white webbing most people peel away and toss, which is actually where much of the hesperidin hides. Aim for a piece or two of citrus most days. And a simple swap, let half a grapefruit or a whole orange take the place of your usual afternoon cookie. Same sweetness, a completely different message sent to your vessels. Number 5 has been used as folk medicine for thousands of years, and modern science has finally caught up to why. Garlic. Mechanism first. When you crush or chop a clove of raw garlic, it produces a sulfur compound called allicin. That sharp, unmistakable smell is the compound forming. Once it is inside you, garlic's compounds appear to help your vessels produce and hold on to more of that nitric oxide signal, the whisper that tells them to relax and widen. Remember our first theme, opening the pipe. Garlic is one of the most studied everyday foods for exactly that, and there is a second related benefit. Reviews collected by mainstream institutions have linked regular garlic intake with modest, gentle support for healthy blood pressure. And lower pressure means less strain hammering against that delicate lining day after day. Now, one honest and important caution, because I promised you honesty, garlic can act as a mild natural blood thinner. If you already take a prescription blood thinner, such as warfarin, or medication for your blood pressure, a big jump in how much garlic you eat can add up in ways you and your doctor need to plan for together. So talk to them before you make garlic a daily supplement-sized habit. For everyone else, here is the how-to. The trick is to crush or chop the clove and then let it sit for about 10 minutes before it hits the heat. That resting time lets the allicin fully form and survive the cooking. Then fold it into your vegetables, your soups, your olive oil. A clove or two most days, cooked into real food, is exactly the gentle, steady pattern the research keeps rewarding. You do not need a pill for this. You need a cutting board. Number 4 is where inflammation meets its match. Small oily fish, salmon, sardines, and mackerel. Mechanism first, and this one is beautifully simple. These fish are rich in omega-3 fatty acids, 2 of which go by the shorthand EPA and DHA. Your body cannot make them on its own. You have to eat them. Once they are inside you, they become the raw material your cells use to build their own natural anti-inflammatory signals. And chronic low-grade inflammation is one of the main forces that stiffens and damages that vessel lining we keep coming back to. Turn the inflammation down, and you help protect the lining that makes your nitric oxide. But omega-3s do something even more direct for circulation. Research reviewed by the American Heart Association links them with healthier levels of blood fats and smoother, more flexible arteries, the very flexibility that lets a vessel open wide and carry blood all the way to a cold foot. The American Heart Association specifically recommends eating fish, especially oily fish, at least twice a week, and that guidance is aimed squarely at protecting your heart and your circulation as you age. So here is how to make it real, and it does not require anything fancy or expensive. Aim for 2 to 3 servings a week. A humble tin of sardines counts every bit as much as a fresh fillet, often more, because you eat the soft little bones and get calcium along with the omega-3s. If canned fish tastes too salty, tip it into a strainer and rinse it under the tap for a few seconds. You wash away a good share of the sodium while keeping the healthy fat that matters. Fold it onto whole grain toast, into a salad, or eat it straight from the tin. Small fish, eaten often, that is the pattern that keeps your vessels supple. Let us pause for just 10 seconds because we are right at the halfway mark. If these first 3 foods have already handed you one idea worth trying, would you do me a small favor? Tap the like button. And if you are new here, subscribe. Every single week, I sit down and turn the best evidence-based research on healthy aging into plain, practical steps you can actually use. No hype, no fear, just food and your own 2 hands. That is the whole promise of this channel. Your subscription is what tells me to keep making these, and it quietly helps another person your age find this too. Thank you. Now, on to number 3. Number 3 is a food that has become almost famous among athletes, and the reason why is pure circulation, the beet. Mechanism first, because this is one of the most elegant stories in all of nutrition. Beets are one of the richest food sources of natural dietary nitrates. Now stay with me, because here is the beautiful part. When you eat those nitrates, the friendly bacteria in your mouth and gut begin converting them step by step into that very same nitric oxide, the opening signal your aging vessels make less and less of on their own. In other words, a beet is a way of feeding your body the raw material to widen its own blood vessels from the inside. This is why nitrate-rich beetroot juice has been studied so heavily for blood flow and exercise tolerance. People can often walk or move a little longer and a little easier because the oxygen-rich blood is reaching the muscle more freely. Think about what that means for a pair of tired, heavy legs. Research gathered by mainstream institutions has connected dietary nitrates from vegetables with support for healthy blood pressure and improved blood flow. That is the opening signal delivered on a plate. How do you use them? Roast whole beets until tender and sweet, grate them raw into a salad, or blend a small cooked beet into a morning smoothie. Beet greens, the leafy tops, are wonderful too. Sauté them like spinach and you get a second dose. And remember, the nitrates concentrate when you keep the vegetable whole, so lean on the real root, not a sugary bottled beverage. Number 2 is the golden oil at the very heart of the longest studied diet on Earth, extra virgin olive oil. Mechanism first, and there are two threads I want you to hold. The first is a family of compounds called polyphenols. One of them, oleocanthal, is so anti-inflammatory that scientists have compared its action in the body to a gentle, natural version of the effect behind common anti-inflammatory medicine. Remember our lining, the one inflammation slowly stiffens? These polyphenols are among the most direct food tools we have for calming that fire and protecting the endothelium. The second thread is the healthy fat itself. The monounsaturated fat in olive oil supports healthier blood fats and, alongside those polyphenols, helps that vessel lining do its nitric oxide job. This is not a fringe idea. The traditional Mediterranean eating pattern, with olive oil as its everyday base, is one of the most heavily documented dietary patterns in the world for protecting the heart and blood vessels, and mainstream bodies from the American Heart Association to the Mayo Clinic point to it again and again for healthy aging. For your legs, that means a vessel system that stays more flexible and less inflamed, better able to carry blood the full distance to your feet. Here is the how-to, and it matters. Reach for extra virgin olive oil. The green, peppery kind, that peppery tickle at the back of your throat, is literally the oleocanthal you are after. Use it raw wherever you can, drizzled over cooked vegetables, whisked into a salad dressing, poured over a bowl of beans, and let it take the place of butter and the heavily processed seed oil spreads. You are not just adding a healthy fat, you are swapping out a driver of inflammation for a food that quietly protects your pipes. Same plumbing, two more keys. And now, the food I asked you to keep in the back of your mind. Number one is not exotic. It is not expensive. It is sitting in the produce aisle of every single grocery store, and you have almost certainly walked right past it 1,000 times. Number one is dark, leafy greens, spinach, arugula, kale, Swiss chard, and their humble cousins. Here is what stops people in their tracks. These plain green leaves are, gram for gram, among the very richest food sources of the natural dietary nitrates we talked about with the beet, the exact raw material your body converts into nitric oxide, the signal that opens your blood vessels. But the greens do not stop there. They are packed with vitamin C and other antioxidants to protect the lining, with potassium that the American Heart Association ties directly to healthy blood pressure, and with folate and magnesium that support the whole vascular system. Open the pipe and protect the pipe. Leafy greens do both in a single handful for pocket change. Now the honest safety note that ties back to my earlier warning, and please hear it clearly. Leafy greens are very high in vitamin K, which helps your blood clot. If you take a blood thinner such as warfarin, you must not suddenly pile on the greens. A big sudden change can throw off your medication. The answer is not to avoid them, but to keep your intake steady and to talk with your own doctor so your dose fits your diet. This is exactly what I meant when I said some advice flips once a condition is diagnosed. For everyone else, the how-to could not be simpler. Aim for a generous handful most days. Sauté spinach in a little of that olive oil with a clove of garlic. And notice how 3 of our foods just came together in one pan. Pile arugula onto a sandwich, or blend a handful of mild greens into a fruit smoothie where you will barely taste them. Plain, honest green and eaten every single day. That is the whole point of today. The strongest blood flow was never built on a luxury. It was built on the humblest food in the store. Now here is the part I most want you to remember, because it is where all of this comes together. Look back over those 6 foods: citrus, garlic, oily fish, beets, olive oil, and leafy greens, and notice something. They are not 6 separate remedies, each aimed at one problem. They are 6 different keys turning the same 2 locks. Do you remember the 2 ideas I asked you to listen for? The signal and the lining. Open the pipe and protect the pipe. Trace them back through the whole list. The nitrates in beets and leafy greens hand your body the raw material to make more of the opening signal. The compounds in garlic help your vessels produce and hold on to that same signal. And guarding the lining that makes it all possible? The vitamin C and flavonoids in citrus, the omega-3s in fish quieting inflammation, the polyphenols in olive oil calming the fire, all of them protecting that fragile endothelium so it can keep doing its job for decades. Over and over, the same two mechanisms, approached from 6 gentle angles. There is deliberate overlap, and that overlap is your safety net. If you miss the fish 1 week, the greens and the olive oil are still on duty. And that is precisely why no single food is the answer, and why no supplement in a bottle can copy this. The strength of the Mediterranean and the Japanese table was never one standout ingredient. It was the pattern. It was the same handful of everyday, anti-inflammatory, nitrate-rich, lining-protecting foods showing up on the plate, meal after meal, year after year, for a lifetime. Each one covers a gap the others miss. Together, they surround your circulation with a kind of steady, unglamorous support that no crash diet and no expensive powder has ever matched. Think of your blood vessels as 60,000 miles of garden hose, kept soft and open by a small, tireless crew. No single food keeps the whole system flowing, but all of them arriving reliably keep warm blood reaching your feet for years longer than anyone expected. That is the real secret. Not one powerful food, a system. And the most encouraging thing about a system is that you do not have to be perfect with any single part of it. You just have to keep showing up a little, most days. Consistency was always the price of good circulation, not perfection. Before we finish, I want to be honest about something food cannot do alone. Your legs have a second heart, and almost no one talks about it. Every time you walk, the muscles in your calves squeeze the deep veins and help pump blood back up toward your heart against gravity. That is why the single best thing you can do for the blood flow in your legs, alongside these foods, is to move them a gentle walk most days and standing up to stretch your legs every hour or so instead of sitting still for half a day. Movement is the pump. Sitting is what lets the blood pool and the legs grow heavy. A few other habits cost nothing at all. If you smoke, know that nothing damages that vessel lining faster, and quitting is the most powerful gift you can hand your circulation at any age. Keep your feet warm. And when you rest, put your feet up for a little while to let gravity help the blood return. Now, 2 simple ways to keep an eye on your own circulation. No clinic, no needles required. First, buy an inexpensive blood pressure cuff at any pharmacy and check your numbers now and then, because blood pressure is the clearest everyday window into the health of those vessels. Second, quietly track your walking distance. Notice how far you can comfortably walk before your legs ache, and watch that number over the months. If it is shrinking, that is not a reason to panic. It is an early, honest invitation to see your doctor while adjusting is still easy. And one last honest word. Everything I have shared today is general guidance for a healthy aging body. The moment a real condition enters the picture, a diagnosed artery disease, a clotting disorder, a medication, the rules can change, and sometimes a food I praise becomes one you need to manage carefully. So let your own doctor be the final voice. Food is powerful, but it works best as a partner to good medical care, never a replacement for it. I want to leave you with this. Whatever your age today, 60, 70, 80, or beyond, it is never, ever too late for your blood vessels to respond to better food and gentle movement. That delicate lining renews itself, and it will answer kindness with warmer feet, steadier legs, and easier days. That is a genuinely hopeful truth, and it is yours. So here is my gentle ask. Think of one person you love who is getting older, a parent, a spouse, a dear old friend who has been complaining about cold feet or tired, heavy legs. Would you share this video with them? Not as a lecture, but as a quiet act of care, the way you would pass along a warm blanket. That one small share might be the nudge that changes how someone you love spends their next decade on their own 2 feet. And one final time, because it matters most, this has been general guidance for healthy aging, not personal medical advice. I am not a licensed physician, and I never claim to be. Please hear this again. Cramping leg pain when you walk that eases with rest, a foot that turns suddenly cold, pale, or blue, brand new numbness, or one calf that is painful, swollen, and warm. These are not problems to eat your way out of. They can signal a blocked artery or a clot, and they need a doctor now. And if you take a blood thinner or blood pressure medication, talk with your own doctor before you make big changes to garlic or leafy greens. Once a condition is diagnosed, some of this advice flips, and your doctor knows your body far better than I ever could. So here is everything in one breath. If that code is on your screen right now, lift your phone and scan it. The 90-year blueprint is my free gift to you. No strings, ever. If this helped you today, subscribe so we can spend next week together on another simple, evidence-based step for a longer, stronger life. And then tell me in the comments, which of the 6 will you try first? The citrus, the beets, the garlic, or the humble leafy greens? I read every single reply, and I genuinely cannot wait to hear. Take gentle care of those hard-working legs of yours, and I will see you in the next one.